I'm excited to talk about your new book that's coming out this week, and that's out officially now. Talk to me about the book, how it came about, and what the message is behind it.
I started that book almost, I'm going to say 2 years ago. And when I started it, it was designed to bring forth the book that would start off what I wanted to do concerning character development. And so that's what I'm all about. My hashtag is character coach. And, I talk in the book how I was waking up one morning and all of a sudden I heard some information going over the air, news airs talking about all the scandals that were going down in college basketball. And so when I heard that, I said, hey, it's time for me to start doing something. So that's when I started writing. When I studied, you ever heard the name John McClendon?
Yes.
A coach that coached at North Carolina Central, coached at Tennessee State, and was literally the first to win national championships for African Americans. Mm-hmm. Literally as a coach, and he actually what I consider the front runner in all this stuff. A lot of people talk about everyone else, but he's the one that brought together different organizations. He made it possible so African American programs could go into predominantly white concept programs. He was the first to enter into the NAIA national tournament and everything. I mean, back then it was really hard, and he had to really fight for it. And he did. And he was the first African American professional coach in basketball. So, I mean, there's a lot of things he did. And his mentor was Dr. Naismith. So when I thought about all the things that was happening in the sport at that time, I said, let me go back and find out what Dr. Naismith said, and let's talk about that. And I really want to talk about that because I want to read it to you, okay? It says, I woke up one morning in the fall of 2009 and sat on the side of my bed, mulling over the conversation I had with two coaches the previous night about the state of college basketball. At that moment, I said, enough is enough, I thought. And they got a picture in here about Dr. Naismith, and it says, it was time to bring back to coaching what Dr. Naismith intended when he created the sport. Naismith believed that if you elected to be a coach, it was also your responsibility to be an advisor, counselor, father figure, and to act at all times as an example to the athletes in your care. He also envisioned that the sport should develop character, foster patriotism, and instill ethical values that would serve participants well into later life. Now, when you think about that, is that's what's happening today? I wanted to give back to parents. I wanted to give back to players and even leaders in America, that these are things, this is what I want to say, a concept that I have created that in their minds, they could take their whatever profession they're in and use it as principles to move themselves forward in their profession. So that's why I started the book.
Who have been the other examples or inspirations for you? Obviously, you talked about Dr. Naismith and John McClendon, but in terms of modern day, some of your peers, who were some of the people in your peers that you felt like kind of exemplified that in the right way?
Yeah, very good question, Martin. And when I coach, now today, I'm no longer coaching, I'm retired. But in my time, I had to look at who was out there or who were the coaches that were out there right before I started coaching, so I could develop a philosophy or a foundation. What you need to know, Martin, is why did I come into the sport? And that's what made me go in that direction. When I was playing college basketball, I did an internship for General Motors in Detroit. Then I eventually went on to in Detroit. I got drafted by the Detroit Pistons, so that's where I was going to try out in the whole works. So I was there, and once all that ended, I tried out, didn't make it, and the whole works went there. And then I went overseas for a short duration, maybe about a month and a half. Went over there and decided, man, this is what I really wanted to do. Back then, overseas was totally different. I mean, you're playing outdoors. I mean, it just wasn't what you really were expecting. So when all that came down, I immediately said, this is, I just did an internship for General Motors. It was called, General Motors Institute. And so it was really a good internship for me and a learning experience. And I ended up, they offered me a job in labor relations, and I had a new life ready to start. But I said, this is what I really wanted to do. My objective was to help people. And that was my objective from the beginning. And I said, And I sat down and I talked with the Lord, and he and I had a conversation. I said, you know what I really want to do? I want to change lives. And I want to change it into something I really enjoy doing. And what I enjoyed doing was basketball. But I wasn't, I was giving the game away from playing. So I said, why don't I coach this game? And when I thought about that, we had that conversation, and I said, this is what I really want to do. But you know, the unique thing, I want to mention this, unique thing, he came back to me and said, if this is what you want to do, and you really are going to take care of the people in the profession or in the sport, meaning by changing lives, then if you do that, I'm going to take care of you every day of your life while you're in that profession. So when I made that decision, I was committed to it. So when I went into coaching, my whole thing was about helping people develop, changing their character, creating an environment where they can grow as human beings in the right direction. And that's how all this came about. Now you gotta realize that was many, many years ago. But to see it all swing back full forward to today, and I'm writing about it in this book, it tells exactly what I meant by, changing lives. And that's what we're trying to do here.
That's awesome, Coach. You touched on the element of black coaches, talking about John McClendon. When Steve Nash was hired as head coach of the Brooklyn Nets, Stephen A. Smith was pretty adamant in feeling like that was just another classic case of white privilege. However, in Steve Nash's case, I made the argument that it was more basketball privilege than white privilege. I just kind of want your take, if on Steve Nash, if you would like, but just in general, just in terms of the opportunities that are there or not there for black head coaches right now, from your perspective.
Well, in my perspective, when I look at this whole thing, I go back to college sports, and we got that same problem there. And literally at one point, I was thinking about being involved in the Black Coaches Association that has gone out of circulation now. So my goal was to bring back some information so we can understand that we still have a struggle in this profession. And what you're saying is the same thing that's happening in professional athletics. They're looking at certain things and we're looking at another. And what happens is, on both sides, we don't understand what picture the other person is coming out of. And so when I say this, I look at Steve Nash, he just took on an opportunity and was looking for, a place to be a part of professional basketball. However, the people that were in control and were trying to bring in someone into a position, we're thinking other things. And that's why I say we don't understand what the other person is thinking. And now, I can't go into that situation and tell you exactly what happened. But when I look at this, I do see a lot of qualified African Americans in professional ranks that are capable of doing that position. Now, what concerns me even more, Martin, is, even though the powers that be, meaning the hierarchy in that association, decided what they wanted to do, they still would go back to the people that's involved in the sport that were in control, like Durant and Kyrie Irving. And they had to have them co-sign on this before they made that decision. And so obviously, they co-signed because it wouldn't have happened.
Sure.
And when I say they co-sign, I don't think they're looking at the other side of the picture.
Sure.
Not looking at there are other coaches that should have a chance at this position and so on. And they could have brought that up at that time. And I don't know if they did or they didn't. But I do know he was hired and they co-signed.
What's your take on where the character coaching levels are in the NBA in general?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Martin, I really don't know, but I do know from some of the people I talked to, like I talked with Norris Cole, who, made the NBA and played in there. And he told me that, it's a whole change of life once you get there. And the coaches are more concerned about what's happening on the court. And off the court, even though they want you to show character, that's not their major concern. They're putting that concern on the person himself. And whenever money's connected with something, they, in my estimation, they make sure that's at the forefront. So if a person is not doing something of character preference, they'll take away money. They'll do something of that magnitude to control it. Mm-hmm. So, I don't really know, but I do know this, that they are trying to do things to show that the players in their profession are doing the right things. And, I thought it was highly showed in the bubble this summer when they were participating. They constantly brought out information of how important it is that, character be shown at the professional level.
Sure.
So I do know that when they go out and recruit these young men into the NBA, they have to do research. They have to sit down and have interviews. And one of the things they have in there is what type of person this is. Does he have any character? And so they at least look at it for a moment. But
right.
when it comes to winning and losing, sometimes they'll overtake the winning over the character.
Coach, were there any players that you coached who you felt like really exhibited that sense of character, who kind of were examples for you, even looking back? You mentioned Norris Cole, or any players that you keep in touch with, or that just looking back really were examples of that for you?
Well, now saying what you just said, Martin, one of our criteria was to recruit people of character.
Sure.
So many of them had character, but one that stuck out was Norris Cole, who I felt was truly a person of character. I mean, understand this, Martin, he didn't have a girlfriend all the way through college.
Get out of here.
You hear me? He didn't
like, legitimately, or he just kept it on the low?
No, legitimately. And he would say, I got time for that later. Let me give you another story so you can have an understanding what I mean by all this. And you'll laugh at this, Martin. When I first came to Rutgers, I was a USA basketball coach. Okay, so I was selected as one of the coaches for the USA basketball. But my association was the Junior USA. So we were looking at players that were coming out of high school and going into college. So they're around the age of 18, 19 at the most. So we had some pretty good players, Mark. We had Carmelo Anthony, we had Chris Bosh, we had Darren Williams, we had Iguodala. Those pretty good players.
Bad.
We ended up qualifying. We won and qualified in that year. The next year we were supposed to coach the team to play in the World Games. However, I didn't go because I made a decision that I had to put more emphasis on the Rutgers team because I was coming into a situation that I had to get right. But in that first year when we coached, we went over and we played overseas, and we had to put everything together in the United States, and we put it together in Miami, Florida, right? So we practiced at the Miami Heat gymnasium and even at their practice facility, and then we would go and we'd take that group, we'd fly to wherever we were participating in. But before that, our first day together, all the young men were there and everybody was excited about playing. And we were about to have dinner. And I came up with an idea that what we need to do is every player, you need to tell all the other players who they are, where they're from, talk about their siblings, and just talk about, things that interest them. So I said, I'll start it out. And then we have the other coaches indicate theirs. And what I'm going to talk about is, my siblings and my wife and all this. And I told him, I said, I was at the time, I said, I've been married for 35 years and then I was 30 something years. And so we talked, but now the other two coaches came up and said, no, as soon as they said that, one player raised his hand and said, Coach, you've been married for that long, huh? He said, yeah. And then the other coaches said, oh yeah, we've been married for 28, 26. And they all got quiet in the room. And then one of them jumped up and said, how in the hell could you be married to a woman that long? So what I'm trying to say here, Martin, is this is their thinking. They couldn't grasp that we were with a person that long and have a relationship that long.
Oh man, that's a great story, Coach. Now you did mention Rutgers. Have you had a chance to check them out and watch them over the last couple years under Coach Peichel, and what have you liked about what they've been doing?
Oh, I really enjoy the way they're playing basketball. They're playing hard. They're doing a great, and I was a defensive guy too, so they're doing a great job on the defensive side of the ball. And I knew it would take them time, Martin, to get the program to a level in the Big Ten, because they're in the East and all their recruiting and their families and everything connected are on the east side, on the East Coast. And that's hard to say, hey, let's put a person, in the Midwest and everyone go and support them there. That's really, really hard. So I knew it would be difficult at the beginning. But not only that, I knew it would be difficult because of the competition in the Big Ten. And when I mean competition, not only the players, they had great coaches. They had Hall of Fame coaches in the Big Ten. So it was not going to be an easy task. And the other reason, and the final reason I'm going to say, is because every time they went to play a game, they had to get on a flight to go play that game. That's a hard thing. That's like playing in the NBA. Hard thing to do. So I knew it would be difficult until they figured it out. And the biggest part I thought you needed to figure out, which if you remember when I coached there at Rutgers, we had great success at home. And I think that's the first thing you got to do is you got to take care of your home and make sure it's successful, and then branch out to do what you need to do on the road. And I think they have accomplished that. They're highly successful at home. I don't know what is their win streak there, but they're doing a great job with that. And so now the people around them, they'll at least come and fill that arena again, like it was when our time was playing, to fill that arena, and then all of a sudden they got a chance. Now you get on the road, you steal some, and you beat the ones you're supposed to beat. Now you're an NCAA team, something that I know the people at Rutgers really wanted from the utmost. So, I've been highly excited. I've had a chance to talk with Coach, and he has told me some great things. I think he's the right person at the right time. Think about all this has happened with this pandemic. It could have been someone that didn't understand how to deal with people and deal with issues, and that could have been a bad situation for them. And I think he's done a great job there. The only thing that I had a problem with is that when they have this good team, then there's no NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
And I know he felt bad about that because this was their time to go there.
Sure.
To push it on to this year and make sure it get done.
He really stressed that the main thing for him was getting the kind of players that he wanted to come in. And obviously talent is part of that, but I could tell that a huge part of that for him was character kids, the character players. What does that do for your program?
In terms of character, what are you looking for? What are the things you're looking for?
Well, I tell you, it's funny that you asked that question because I remember going into a home one time in Pennsylvania, and we're talking about character, and we went into a home, and you could immediately see that the player had control of the narrative. Wouldn't let the parents talk. He was all excited about himself. And so you really knew that there was an issue there. So if you want to follow that issue, and because of the talent, because that's what we get caught up in. We get caught up in the talent first, which is needed. You know that. But on the same token, I think character should be part of your criteria when we're recruiting someone. And that's what we did. We recruited people with character first. I get an example, J.R. Inman. He had great parents and he had great character. And when we recruited him from New Jersey, that was the main purpose, that we felt that if we could get a player of that talent with character, he could lead. Because I think character leads. And another player that came out of that same area was Anthony Farmer. And I said he had character.
Ooh, oh man, I almost forgot about Farmer, man. He was crazy in high school.
And that was my last group of recruits.
Right.
And the whole purpose was to recruit players with character and then get them out on the floor and let them use their talent. But at the same time, they had to understand that they were the representatives of the program. You can go out on the limb and recruit a player that's got certain issues, okay? And it could be an academic issue, it could be a personal issue, and it even to a point could be a character issue. But now what you can't do is recruit a number of them. You can recruit one or two maybe, but you can't recruit a number of them. Because, when we were in the Big East at that time, if you remember, it was the number one conference in the country. I mean, it wasn't just you were playing a game. It was the number one conference because 2 of the 5 years I was there at Rutgers, the Big East won the national title. Connecticut won it 1 year. Syracuse won it another year. I mean, you got to think how strong it was during that period of time. So when you came into the conference, you wanted to make sure that you brought in talent. I'll never forget this one thing at the USA Basketball. The people that were the leaders at the time was Boeheim and Calhoun. And this is my first. I hadn't been at Rutgers yet, but I'm coaching this team, and they came up to me to greet me and say, "Hey, we're excited about you coming into the Big East, and we feel you'll do a good job." But they said, "If you do this, you got 2 pros on the floor at all times." I mean, and they said it verbatim. You got to have 2 pros on there, or you can forget about it. You're gonna struggle in this league. What they were telling me, a message at that moment, is talent was very important. When I started recruiting out east, I realized how important it was, and that's where character came in. There were some issues out on the road in the Big East, and I realized what was going on. But it's because they were looking at talent first and character second. But you got to find out one thing, and I've learned this throughout all the time I've coached, is that if you find out what type of heart they have, if they got a good heart, you can change that. You can help them in areas. You can probably bring forth character that they've never had before because they haven't seen it. They haven't experienced it in front of them. But if they have a good heart, now if you see if that heart is darkened, okay, then you got issues, because they're not going to listen to what you say. And you can bring forth all the information you want, thinking you can lead them in a direction, and it's not going to go in that direction. All you're going to do is have troubles.
What are some of the things that you notice, that you observe, that are kind of similar in the game, that are kind of those constant things that will always be there? And what are you seeing in terms of what's evolving and what's changed?
Oh, that's a unique question, Martin. To give you an answer to it, I have to go back in the last couple of years of my coaching at the collegiate level. And the basketball really took a total reversal, a total change. When the years before, the number one area of success was defense. They concentrated on it. They focused on it. You hear that old adage that says, "The defense wins championships and offense wins games," or the vice versa, whatever way it goes. But defense was a key factor. Then you've seen the NCAA, as well as professional, make a decision to have more flow in the game. And they call it free flow. And so what they were looking for is to bring offense to the forefront and put defense on the back burner. Now, and that's what I'm going to give you this, you'll like this, is that's why I feel Jordan is still the best in the business, because he came through a time when, they could basically kill you out there on the floor. And he fought through it and found ways to have a high level of success.
But to those people who say that, which is, you can't really argue, the talent is just so much better now than it was back then. Jordan was playing against, garbage workers and stuff. People make all kind of crazy jokes. But what do you say to those people though?
Well, let me give you this. Let's talk about the talent base first, because that's what a lot of this is based around. The talent when Jordan came into the league was high level too. You want me to tell you why I say this? If you look at the Hall of Fame, most of the guys that were in Jordan's era is now in the Hall of Fame. Now, when I say overall talent, meaning from high school all the way to college, it's more talented. And the reason why it's more talented is because of one thing, in my estimation, is the athleticism has changed. When I grew up, everyone we were playing and we were excited and we wanted a pair of gym shoes. And the gym shoe of the day was Converse Canvas.
Oh man, my dad went crazy for Converses, man.
Oh man, loved it. Those guys wear that in one play. The thing is tore up today.
Oh yeah, right.
And we play. It just tore in shreds.
Yeah.
But today they had to build a shoe that was connected with the player of today. And now you take Zion, who tore out even that shoe. That tells you how physically of presence they are and athletic they are.
Sure.
And it's a total difference from the past. However, the knowledge is the key to success. And so the group that you had in Jordan's day was more knowledgeable of the game. They really studied the game. They studied everything. They studied what they did, how to do it. Now, they were great athletes in Jordan's time, They were great, but the overall athlete wasn't as that same type of athlete. Whereas today, you go to a team, you may get a few foreign kids that don't have the athleticism like the others, but I bet you 3/4 of the players on that team have that natural talent, athletic ability.
Yeah.
And that is a big difference. And so what I tell them is that the player of yesterday was more astute to the game than the player of today. And yes, they have great talent today as opposed to yesteryears, but the ones with the greatest talent always stick out.
And which of the current stars, Coach, would you predict might actually make the Hall of Fame one day?
See, you got a couple of eras going on. You have Kobe's era that was in there a period of time. Now you got you got LeBron's era that he's in control of. Obviously, we know LeBron's going to make it. We know Kobe is in it automatically. But the young ones today, they still have to prove it. That's my concern. Even like Zion's got great ability, but we don't know, will that last throughout all the games that they play? Think about Jordan. Jordan probably missed a handful of games in his entire career. Today, they're looking for, what is it called, the load management, everything possible not to play. And so it's a total different outlook.
Yeah.
However, there are some ones that stand out. And you know what the scary thing about this is? Many of them are foreign players. Like Luka Doncic. He's an unbelievable player. How many can do what he can do at the age he's doing it?
Sticking with kind of these current NBA stars and going back to black head coaches, Doc Rivers is the new head coach in Philadelphia, and he gets to coach Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. What would be kind of your take? Because there's been a lot of kind of just talk about the two of them. Can they play together? That whole thing with star duos. But when you look at Simmons and Embiid, what would you be excited about in terms of getting a chance to coach them?
Oh, well, for Doc, I know he's overly excited to have a center that can dominate the game out there on the floor. Because it's not many of them out there left. They're skilled and some can shoot. So, but it's only a few of them. Ben Simmons, he's probably the most gifted of passers you're going to find in the game of basketball. So he can make others better around him. What I think they're going to probably put a lot of emphasis on is bringing players in that can shoot the basketball, because the game has gone to that degree that if you can't shoot the basketball, you can't be in the game any longer. So, and I mentioned to you earlier, Martin, about in my last couple of years, the game had changed. So defense was put back on the back burner, but offense was extended, and the scoring averages went up, shooting went up more, 3 points went up, and everything. So now you got to find players that fit that mold. If you don't, then you're gonna have a hard time out there, because analytics say 3-2 is always going to win. Now for Doc, he's got two. Now he knows he's got to add some more to that can really shoot the basketball. But I'm going to still get to this, Mark. You can do all the shooting you want. You can do all that you can there. But when it gets to the playoffs, if you don't defend, you're not going to win in the playoffs. And they've put so much emphasis on winning in the playoffs. And, think about it. I'll give you an example. Think about the Clippers. They had a great year.
Yeah.
Their team, and Doc did a great job with them for their team during the season, because they blew those 3-1 leads in the playoffs. Now all of a sudden, Doc is the worst coach to coach the game, and he's got to be relieved of his position. And the players that were involved in that are all quitters and chokers. I have a hard time with that. And see, what they haven't talked a lot about when it comes to the bubble is everyone playing at one place, no home court, and they're consistently playing over and over again. That's why you had some of the games you've seen during that period of time. You take Phoenix Suns, go undefeated.
Right.
That's because what they were playing in, the environment they were playing in. Yeah. And they're not bringing that forth because they don't want to say, well, it's all about the pandemic, and they didn't do what they were supposed to, what they could do or they could do.
Yeah.
So, and they're trying to take that off the picture. But when you look at the whole picture of everything, I believe that the players today are more designed to be on the perimeter in the interior. So, and this is what everyone's saying, is that if you have an interior player, you're at a disadvantage. I totally disagree. You just have to use that person inside and make sure they do what you're asking them to do. And that's what I think Doc will bring to the Philadelphia 76ers.
Why does society need basketball?
Oh man, that's a good one. I talk to people, what do we need that game for anymore? You don't look at it, what's happening at the high level now. Why do you need it? You got to look at the low level, meaning the grassroots. What you have there are kids participating in sport. They're working hard. They're learning ethical things in life by playing basketball. And if they use those things as they go up, they can use them on further in their life. And they're learning that, hey, I have to compete for everything that I'm involved in, or I won't have any success in this world today. For some reason, this generation of kids have been brought up to believe that as long as they show up, they get a trophy. and now they got to show them ways that they need to compete. And there's no better place to compete. That's, if anything you ask and answering your question, the reason why I think they need basketball today is because it teaches you to compete in life. Okay, now you just got to get the right people that are working with you, coaching you. And that's where character comes in. Because if they're teaching you character while you're competing, oh boy, when you get in that conference room in business, you're gonna compete in that conference room, but you're gonna do it the right way.
I really appreciate that insight and all the insight and all the feedback and the information. I can't wait to get your book.
Go get one, because it not only teaches you that character is important, it teaches you how to live with other people. In our society today, we're struggling with that issue.
Coach, I really appreciate it, man. Thank you for taking the time. You look good in that picture. That cover photo is that's the young Coach Waters.
Yeah, I remember all that hair and everything else.
Coach, stay well, stay healthy, and take care. I'll definitely be in touch soon. But I really appreciate you taking the time. Seriously, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. And hey, let's do this again.
Will do. Absolutely.